Hello, I'm in Washington, D.C. It's actually like a fake little town outside of D.C. called, I don't even know, Reston? Something like that. Where am I? I'm not really sure. Anyway, we're doing some kind of AP exam stuff, but I wanted to put together a quick little video since, I'm here all by myself. May as well do some work Saturday night. So, some general tips that I wanted to throw out there for you guys working on Project 2. I added some new samples to the code directory and the skeleton, and I was going to go through those. If you want to use the Princeton Standard Library for this project, you can. You just need to use the copy that's inside of the edu.princeton.cs.introcs package. So for example, I have here a piece of code known as indemo. So what indemo does, it's inside of a package, and this time, because we're no longer in the default package, we need to actually import the in class. So there's a version inside of a package in our Java libraries that you're welcome to use. And to do this, I'll go to run, and in this case, I run, wrong test. I'm going to run indemo. Now in my case, when I run indemo, it prints itself out. However, if you try this in IntelliJ, it probably won't. The issue is that you need to make sure that when you go to run, that you go to edit configurations and set the working directory here to be the directory of the file you want to be able to read. This actually, by the way, is something you should probably do throughout the project. Anytime you want to read a table, make sure your working directory is set appropriately. If you're somebody who's insisting on using the command line, well, I'll let you try and figure it out. You can post on Piazza if you can. Next up, I wanted to mention that enums are a handy way to keep track of categories that an object might belong to. So for example, I have here card suits, and card suits is kind of like a class, but simpler. And there's 4 possible values of a card suit. There's diamonds, hearts, spades, and clubs. So in demo card suits, we see that we can create an array, say, of card suits, which come from this enum here. Because, see, this public enum instead of class. And so I can say, for example, some suits 0 equals card suits diamonds, or some suits 1 equals card suits hearts. And that just sets up my enum, and I'm throwing them in an array. And you can also use the value of method if you want to convert a string to an enum. We can print them out, as you might imagine, and we can also do comparisons, say. Like, if some suits 1 is equal to card suits.hearts, then we'll print out that card 1 is a heart. So let's try running that. This is demo card suits. So we get diamonds, hearts, spades, and card 1 is a heart. And again, you can try those out on your own. Okay, next up, philosophically. I want to mention that you really, really, really want to write tests. It will make your life so much better. You have no idea how much pain you're saving yourself until you do it. Minor typo. But basically, it is annoying to write tests, and in a little tiny clip I'm going to stick right after this one, I'll show you what I mean roughly, but it's just so amazing to know that the basic pieces are worth it, the basic pieces are working. And in the context of a big system, you don't have the time to sit there and chase down the bugs all the way to the bottom over and over. You want to work your way bottom up, unit tests. So some key tips. If you have some kind of private methods that you want to test, so I made up this silly little class here called nested test classes. A nested test classes object has a value, it gets set by a constructor, and it has some private methods. Square, accumulate, value. And as we know, we can't write JUnit tests for private methods easily. You can, as we did in class, change these to public, but there's another approach that some people use that you can try, and either way, whatever feels right to you, where you can create a static nested class. So in this case, my class is called test the outer class private methods, pretty good name, and I put all of my tests inside of this inner class. And the thing is, because this class is part of the outer class here, it can actually access all of these private methods. So to run this, I'm just going to run like I normally would. I'm going to click on this class here. I'm going to say run, and I'm going to go with nested class. Let's see, here we go. Looks ugly. Has this $ thing here. That's my friend DC. Anyway, I run this test, and it runs just fine, except for, well, the fact that one of the tests fails. Which brings me to one of my last topics of this little micro video, which is that whenever you do equals, you have to actually have an equals method. Because right now, value doesn't have an equals method, and so you can create one in order to make everything behave the way we want, as we discussed in lecture. So we could say public Boolean equals object O, etc., and write all that stuff. However, IntelliJ actually provides a faculty where you can generate a method. Oh dear, don't call Mike. Anyway, so I can, for example, go to, let's see, I don't actually know it without the keyboard shortcut. Oh, there it is. Okay, code generate. So you can go to code, generate, and then you can say, I would like an equals method. And so when you do this, you can just say next, 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 whatever. And in this case, it generates an equals for me that should work. It also gives you something called hash code. We'll talk about what that is later in the class. You may as well just keep it. Okay, next up, we run this. And now it passes. Okay, great. And so you're welcome to write your own equals method, or you can use the ones that IntelliJ can generate. And just a couple little last things. I know I've said this at least a couple times, but if you find yourself doing something like map from integer to list of strings, right? I have a collection of collections. This is a sign you need a new class. If you work with collections of collections, I mean, you can do it. It'll work. But the problem is that you get confused trying to keep track of like get and put and whatever, and it becomes a mess. And so I highly recommend that you make a class that captures whatever this thing is that you're supposed to do. So this is apparently a collection of strings that are indexed by integers, and well, I don't know. I don't want to speculate too much about what this particular thing is, but it's nice to have a class so you don't have to do something like get in a row. It just becomes messy. A couple other little things. If you use a map, it's incredibly important that the keys are immutable. If you do not obey that, then your maps can just fail in some terrible way. So if we have, for example, map from list to something something, the lists are mutable. This map won't work, and you might not catch it until you run it on a big program. You have no idea what's happening. Another is if you use hash map, which is one of the types of maps, your keys need to override the hash code method, and you can use the one that IntelliJ automatically generates. And as we saw in the previous slide, I've given you a way that you can do this. Okay, so just a bunch of little programming tips that I hope you find helpful. They will save you a bunch of time, and that's something I think is very important for this project. Okay, see you in the next little mini clip.